Welcome back to Creating Your Life. This is episode 9, Adaptive Unconscious, part 1. So for this episode and the next, we're going to focus on the adaptive unconscious. This is the magician in your head, the con artist. And it's really fascinating because the adaptive unconscious is what regulates your perception in ways that you're unaware of. Just like the reticular activating system will create blind spots and screen out things to allow you to focus, the adaptive unconscious goes even further and adapts things even more psychologically. It's not just perceptions per se, but it's more than that. Thomas Jefferson, the great American president and writer of the Declaration of Independence, wrote once, "The moment a person forms a theory, his imagination sees in every object only the traits which favor that theory." This is known today as confirmation bias. But he's pointing to something that has been well known throughout history, that when people hold beliefs deeply, it colors what they see. And if you have a theory about things, if you have a kind of certainty about things, reality has a way of filling it in as if it were true. So let's talk about the adaptive unconscious. It is something that actually functions in between your conscious mind and the subconscious repository. Recall that the conscious mind, as you gather perceptions and connect things to experience, evaluate and respond to them over and over again, as you repeat, the subconscious repository stores these patterns, these habits, stores your self-image, it stores reality. Once these things are stored, the adaptive unconscious works to regulate the worlds between. Its first job is to match the pictures. In other words, it wants to make sure that the outer world and the inner world match. How does it do this? If you have a stored picture of yourself, let's say, the example I brought up before was about math. Suppose that as a child, you took a standardized test and the teacher told you, yeah, this shows that you're weak in math, and you took that in and you told yourself, yes, I am weak in math. I am a person who is not that strong in math. And suppose one day you take a math test some years later and you do really well on it. In fact, you almost get a perfect score. If this stored image of yourself is strong or absolute, what are you going to say to yourself when you see this perfect score? Are you going to say to yourself, oh, I'm good at math? No, you're going to excuse it. Oh, this is a fluke. Obviously, this isn't like me. This must be some kind of accident. And what studies will show is that the next time you take a math exam, this adaptive unconscious will make sure that you answer questions incorrectly so that the picture of the kind of person you are matches the picture that is stored. In other words, the adaptive unconscious will correct for the mistake of success. Now, if your self-image isn't that strong in terms of math, if you have some doubts and there's a part of you that says, maybe I could be good at math. If that door is open, then when you take a math test, there's the opportunity there when you do well on it to actually change your picture so that now, since the world is telling me that I am good at math, I will change the stored picture. If the stored picture is really rooted, however, the adaptive unconscious will make sure outer reality matches. This is why it's important to understand that any belief about yourself, about the world, anything you repeatedly say to yourself, if it gets stored in this way, in terms of absolutes, it's likely to start screening out reality, creating blind spots to anything alternative. And you'll start making excuses for it. Oh, I see this, but that's an exception. I'm really this way. Oh, the way I am, I don't see how I could have done that well. If you make excuses for success, it's a sign that you may be storing an image that's simply not true. I remember once, my parents, there was a time in my life where I wasn't making much money. I wasn't able to get a job that made a lot of money. I was working with somebody trying to figure out what was holding me back. And one thing that came up is I remembered when I was in sixth grade, when I was about 12 years old, even though I was a piano player, I didn't have a piano at the time, but I did have a drum pad. And I used to play record albums and play the drums and have a lot of fun doing it. And I remember once telling my parents, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to make money doing what I love. And both of my parents told me, don't ever expect to make a living doing what you love. And that got inside of me. And I didn't realize that that was a pattern that I was storing. But once I realized that that was there, I started working it out. I got it out of my system. I know of a friend who, I'll call him Ted. Ted had he had an older brother that used to sing a certain song to him. Ed realized this when he was older, when he was trying to do his own business, but he was struggling being successful, and he realized that there was this tape playing in his head from his childhood. His brother would sing this song. Wrong, Ted, wrong again, wrong all the time, every day, every week, wrong, wrong, wrong. Wrong, Ted, wrong again, wrong all the time, every day, every week, wrong, wrong, wrong. Imagine that playing in your head. So what he had to do is he had to rewrite the picture. The stored picture was him being wrong. So he started changing the song and started singing, right, Ed, right again, right all the time, every day, every day, right, 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 Ted, right again, right all the time, every day, every week, right, right, right. And he did that enough that the old picture ejected and the new picture got in. And that freed him up to be much more successful at his business. So the adaptive unconscious, it works to match the pictures. And if you already have a stored picture that's working against you, it can alter reality, alter your perception to make sure the pictures match. But if you can, through repetition, get the old picture out and the new picture in, then you'll start regulating at the new picture, and that becomes automatic. This is how I quit smoking. I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, Marlboro cigarettes. I loved smoking. It was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed it. There were some downsides with coughing and such things, and I would get bronchitis every year. So after about 8 years, it was time to stop. And like so many other people, I'd use willpower to quit smoking. And after a while, all I had to do was smoke 1 cigarette, and within a couple days, I'm back to 2 packs a day. But once I understood this picture way of approaching things, I started changing the picture, and I did something that was anti-intuitive. What I did was I first became a non-smoker before I quit smoking. See, most people are smokers and then they quit, but if they're still smokers, they have this craving for cigarettes. The adaptive unconscious is pulling them back in. The stored image, this habit of smoking, this pattern that's in the head, is operating to pull you back to cigarettes. So I realized I had to become a non-smoker first. So I started visualizing that I was a non-smoker. Even though I was smoking a cigarette, I would imagine that there was no cigarette there. I would imagine that there was no smoke in the air. I would imagine that the ashtray was clean, that there was no smell in my clothes. And I would start adopting the attitudes of a non-smoker. And this is important. I started to have the feeling of being a non-smoker. I'd say things like, oh yeah, smoking a cigarette is like licking an ashtray. And ooh, boy, smoke stinks. I'm glad I'm a non-smoker. So I started doing these kind of things. Cigarette smoking is awful. You cough up stuff. I'm glad I don't smoke. And so every day I visualize myself, I'm a non-smoker. I'm a non-smoker. I cultivated the pictures, the habits, the attitudes, the feelings of being a non-smoker. Now, I didn't know then what I know now, so it took longer, but I did this for several months. And finally, the old picture came up and the new picture took hold. And one day I started realizing, I think it's time to quit. So I quit, and I had no craving to go back. I had that few days of physical addiction, but I didn't crave cigarettes. Why? Because non-smokers don't crave cigarettes. So I've never gone back. I've never had a desire to, because I've been a non-smoker ever since. So adaptive unconscious works like a spin doctor initially. Its job is to spin reality to fit you and keep you in a box, keep you in these strong images you have. But there is also a way, and we'll talk about this next time, where it can spin the other way as well if you give it a chance. So the question is, what pictures do you hold about people you know, about business and government, about rich and poor, about different ethnic groups, and about yourself? What is holding you back? What are the kind of things that you've stored that your adaptive unconscious is holding you to and spinning reality to keep you fixed there? At the end of the day, change management is a kind of picture management. The pictures, the feelings, the attitudes in us. And if we can change those pictures, we can change the world. That's all for now. Next episode, we'll have the Adaptive Unconscious Part 2. And don't forget my book on Amazon, Creating Your Life, What You Should Have Learned as a Teen.